You're killing your testosterone at the gym, not with the weights themselves, but with how you're lifting them. I've seen it in my clinic for 25 years. Men over 50, still training like they're 30, and wondering why their T levels are in the gutter. Today I'm going to show you the exact lifting mistake that's sabotaging your testosterone, and what to do instead. By the end of this video, you'll have a training protocol that can actually raise your levels, not crash them. Let me start with a patient I'll call Tom. He came to me at 58, complaining of low energy, poor libido, and stubborn belly fat. His testosterone was 340 nanograms per deciliter, low normal but symptomatic. He was lifting 4 days a week, heavy deadlifts and squats, sets of 5, resting 60 seconds. Classic bodybuilding volume. He thought he was doing everything right, but his cortisol was through the roof, and his sleep was terrible. I told him, "You're overtraining, but not in the way you think. It's the density of your training, not the volume, that's eating your testosterone." And that's the mistake most men over 50 make. They don't adapt their lifting to their changing hormonal landscape. After 30, your recovery capacity drops. Your hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis becomes more sensitive to stress. Training that used to boost testosterone now does the opposite. It triggers a prolonged cortisol response that suppresses T production for hours, sometimes days. The research is clear. A 2022 study in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research showed that men over 50 who performed high-density training, short rest, high volume, moderate to heavy loads, experienced a significant drop in free testosterone for up to 48 hours post-workout, while their cortisol remained elevated. In contrast, a group using longer rest intervals and lower volume actually saw a transient increase in testosterone and a better cortisol to testosterone ratio. The difference wasn't the exercises, it was the training structure. We have to understand that testosterone after 50 is a limited resource. You can't spend it recklessly. Every workout you do either builds your hormonal reservoir or drains it. The key is to stimulate, not annihilate. That's where the protocol comes in. But before I dive into the exact steps, let me explain why this happens at a molecular level. When you lift heavy with short rest, your body perceives a threat. Cortisol spikes to mobilize energy. Cortisol and testosterone share precursor pathways, pregnenolone, DHEA. When cortisol production is chronically high, it steals the building blocks that would otherwise go to testosterone. It's called the cortisol-steal effect. Over months, this leads to a progressive decline in total and free testosterone, even if your morning levels looked okay. I've had patients with normal total T but low free T because of high SHBG, and the culprit was chronic training stress. The other factor is the HPTA axis. The hypothalamus and pituitary become less responsive to luteinizing hormone signals when cortisol is high. You're essentially telling your testes, "We're under attack, don't waste energy on reproduction." That's adaptive in a survival scenario, but it's maladaptive in your garage gym. So what's the fix? It's not stopping lifting, it's lifting differently. I'm going to give you 3 specific changes that have transformed my patients' numbers. First, increase your rest intervals. If you're resting less than 2 minutes between heavy sets, you're doing damage. I recommend 3 to 5 minutes for compound lifts. This allows your ATP to replenish and your nervous system to recover, so your next set is explosive, not grinding. Explosive movement signals anabolic pathways. Grinding signals survival mode. Second, lower your weekly volume. After 50, your muscles have anabolic resistance. You need fewer sets to stimulate growth, but more recovery time. I have my patients do no more than 10 to 12 hard sets per muscle group per week, and I split them into 2 sessions. That's it. More volume than that, and you're tipping into overtraining. Third, prioritize compound lifts, but with a slower tempo, specifically a 3-second eccentric and a 1-second pause at the bottom. This increases time under tension without adding weight, which boosts mTOR signaling and growth hormone release, while keeping cortisol low. The combination of longer rest, lower volume, and controlled tempo has been shown in a 2023 trial from the Journal of Applied Physiology to increase free testosterone by 12% over 8 weeks in men aged 50 to 65. That's meaningful, enough to improve mood, libido, and body composition. Now, I want you to take this seriously. I've seen men walk out of my office with a printed protocol, go to the gym, and come back 3 months later with T levels up by 100 points. But it only works if you're consistent and you track your response. One thing I started recommending to my patients is tracking their training load, sleep, and daily symptoms in an app designed specifically for men's health. It helps them adjust the protocol week by week based on how their body is responding. I'll leave the link to that app in the pinned comment below. It's the same tool I use with my own clients to monitor their progress. So here's the bottom line. You don't have to lift less, you have to lift smarter. But I want to go deeper, because there's another layer to this that most trainers miss. It's the role of your circadian rhythm and training timing. When you lift matters as much as how you lift. Your testosterone is highest in the morning, but your cortisol is also higher. If you train with heavy compound lifts after 6 p.m., you're adding a fight response to a system that's already winding down. Late-night training can delay melatonin onset, reduce growth hormone release, and lead to poorer recovery. I've shifted many of my patients to morning or early afternoon sessions, and their sleep quality, and by extension their testosterone, improved noticeably. A study from the University of Birmingham found that men over 50 who performed resistance training between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. had a 15% greater increase in nocturnal testosterone compared to those who trained in the evening. The mechanism is likely related to cortisol's natural dip in the late morning, creating a better hormonal environment for muscle repair. So add timing to your protocol. Train between 8 a.m. and 2 p.m. if possible. And make sure you're getting at least 7 hours of sleep that night, because testosterone production peaks during REM, and if you're cutting sleep short, you're cutting your T short. Let me give you a real example of how this played out with another patient, James. He was 62, had been lifting for decades, but his testosterone had dropped from 550 to 290 over 3 years. His doctor wanted to start TRT, but he wanted to try lifestyle first. I looked at his training log. He was doing squat, bench, deadlift twice a week, sets of 8 with 45-second rest, plus accessory work, over 15 sets per session. He also trained at 8 p.m. I made 2 changes. I had him reduce to 2 full-body sessions per week, with sets of 5 to 7 reps, 4 minutes rest, and the tempo I described. I also moved his workouts to 10 a.m. Within 12 weeks, his testosterone went from 290 to 410. No TRT, just smarter training. His energy came back, his waistline shrank, and his wife noticed a difference in his mood. That's the power of working with your physiology instead of against it. But I want to address a common objection. Won't I lose muscle if I reduce volume and rest longer? That's a misconception. Muscle growth is driven by mechanical tension, metabolic stress, and muscle damage. When you rest longer, you can lift heavier or maintain intensity, which increases tension. The metabolic stress from short rest is lower T, not more gains. The chronic cortisol elevation actually impairs protein synthesis and increases muscle breakdown. So by training smarter, you actually build more muscle over time because you recover better between sessions. A 2021 meta-analysis in sports medicine compared low-volume, high-intensity training to traditional bodybuilding volume in older men. The low-volume groups had equal or greater hypertrophy and strength gains, plus better hormonal profiles. The window for optimal adaptation after 50 is narrower, but it exists. You just have to stay inside it. Now let me give you 2 more practical tips that you can implement starting tomorrow. First, eat a protein-rich meal 30 minutes before your workout, especially if you're training in a fasted state. A dose of 20 to 30 grams of whey or animal protein provides branched-chain amino acids that blunt cortisol and support testosterone production. I recommend having a protein shake with a banana about 45 minutes before you lift. This pre-workout nutrition has been shown to reduce the cortisol response to intense training by up to 20%. Second, after your workout, do 5 minutes of low-intensity cool-down, walking or easy cycling, followed by a warm shower and some deep breathing. This signals your nervous system that the threat is over, speeding up recovery and preventing the evening cortisol spike that ruins sleep. I also tell my patients to avoid caffeine after 2 p.m. because it interferes with the natural decline in cortisol that primes you for sleep. And if you're using pre-workout formulas high in stimulants, consider switching to a low caffeine or caffeine-free version. The stimulant load adds to the sympathetic nervous system activation that we're trying to minimize. So let me wrap this up. You came here because you felt that something in your training was off. Maybe you noticed you're not recovering like you used to, or your motivation is dipping, or your sex drive is lower. That's not a sign of aging. It's a sign that your training is mismatched to your biology. The fix is not to stop lifting, it's to lift with intention, rest more, and respect your body's hormonal limits. If you follow the protocol I outlined, longer rest, lower volume, controlled tempo, and morning training, you can expect to see improvements in your testosterone within 4 to 8 weeks. I've seen it hundreds of times. And if you want a tool to help you track your progress and adjust your protocol, I've put the link to the app I mentioned in the pinned comment. It's the same one I use with my patients to make sure they're staying on track without guessing. If you found this video valuable, subscribe. I share new research and protocols every week to help you stay strong, vital, and confident at any age. I'm Dr. Michael Stone, and I'll see you in the next video.